nice evening and see how everyone's doing and do some live building. So we're just gonna get set up a little bit here. I'm gonna try and do a full build of all three of my main flagship bestsellers and see how people respond to that. I know a particular customer was really interested in kind of the process for a couple that I've for like the Machina, which I am going to build live on stream. I just need to double check that I have one more part, get a little bit cleaned up right around the area. Kind of gonna jump into it in just a second. Want to make sure I have everything I need and nothing that I don't. So, be jumping into it. I know everyone's probably enjoying a nice evening at home. I know I worked with my dad today doing a cabinet install, and so this is where we're at right now. And we'll kind of see how people trickle in and things do. I'm gonna do some Facebook streaming here in a bit as well. So I may be taking questions from both. But yeah. Just grabbing an important transistor. So this is what goes in the Machina. We'll be putting that in shortly. And make sure we have everything else. But yeah, we're gonna get rocking. We're right off. You have to not mind my mini rock stars that I have here. And yeah, we'll have a good time. I think I'm ready to fire up this. We're having some difficulties over on the Instagram earlier, but we'll give it a shot again and kind of see how we do. And maybe we'll be able to get things going over there. So, let's see. I know everyone's probably kind of chilling at home doing their thing. We'll see if we can have a time. Hey, it's working. Sorry if anybody was trying to tune in earlier. We were having some issues over on Instagram getting the stream to fire up. I knew that I had to do a reset for whatever reason. Hey, what's up, dude? Doing some live building. And we're dual streaming. We're streaming over on Facebook or YouTube right now. Here, let's try that. Let's try something like this. Trying to get all the phones aligned, all the devices. There we go. Now you can kind of see my workbench. So we're going to build a Machina live. I know a customer had asked me and was curious about the entire process. So that requires 2 circuit boards. It requires the Germanium side, that's this board. It's the one knob. And then it requires this one, which is the rest of the controls. And that has a lot of off-board wiring. We have all our parts here. We're ready to start rocking. And I've got my rock star. So we're going to be doing some live building. Hope everyone's having a nice... I wanted to say Friday. This feels like a Friday for me because I worked this afternoon helping my dad, but I know that it is actually Saturday. So I just want to make sure I got all my parts in order. And sure enough, we surely do. And yeah. Gonna get kicked off shortly. Just making sure I have all my pots, all my stuff ready. I actually have some foot switches pre-made. Perfect. So we're gonna get started. This is the factory, Fuzz factory side of the Machina. Hey, Mike. We are live building a Machina. Someone had asked me the other day if I could do one from start to finish. So we'll try to not necessarily speed run it, but do it efficiently and cleanly and show the entire build. Yeah, no worries, man. We're dual streaming, so there's going to be multiple people watching the stream at once. Hopefully everyone enjoyed their weekend so far. Hello. So I'm going to try, oh yeah, that's right. How's it going, dude? I'm going to attempt to build a Machina, a sender, and a surprise on stream. Typically, I can only really get like one filled. It's all good. Hey, Paul. Um, we're going to do some live building tonight. Got to get some units not just out for customers, but also I need to get some demo units that are going to go out to some dealers, open up some new doors, some new opportunities, and I also need to shoot some new demo footage. What I realized with the sender pedal, I posted some clips on my various social medias, that the sender really needed some better promotional material, and so I went ahead and redid some of that, and that's what we're doing now, is working on some new stuff. I kind of want to shoot out the Machina, the sender, and the surprise all not necessarily against each other, but in conjunction and working together for sound. And I think that would be a helpful exercise and kind of show people the capability of those particular offerings. It maybe help people make a decision between them or to decide to buy all of them, which is what everyone should do. So right now I'm loading resistors into the left side of the Machina board, just kind of going through. What I do is I load the resistors, and then I'll take like my long needle nose pliers here. The purpose of this is so when I flip it upside down, stuff's not going to fall out, and it's going to keep it nice and secure when I do my soldering on the backs. So that's the game plan here. Behind you guys is all my parts bins that have everything that's going in it. But yeah, I get questions from time to time about how particular builds go and stuff like that. Quick topic change. If anybody has a Fuzz imp question or a Fuzz question, feel free to ask it. I kind of went down a rabbit hole today. I was watching some stuff and trying to learn again about the band Meshuggah, the Swedish grandfathers, I guess you would call them. And what I was curious about was kind of what they were doing in the early days, gear-wise. I kind of knew a little bit of what they were doing, but I was watching some old concert footage that I found pretty interesting, and I like some of their old tones. And I was doing all this research on early Meshuggah stuff, and I was very interested to learn. I knew that they used the valve state, especially live in the early days. And I was talking to one of my friends about it, and I think part of that stems not just from how it sounded, because it can sound really kind of cool and tight and boosted, the Marshall valve state, but also just about the cost of gear in Sweden at the time, especially with them not being as big of a band. There's a reason why those Marshall valve states were a popular amp for touring metal bands of that era, and I think it's because they were relatively reliable and affordable and light for the time. They weren't necessarily the best sounding. Yeah, they actually used the 200 watt version is like a B200 chorus model or something, is what I saw on online, or maybe at 8200. I don't know. It was a model I hadn't really been that aware of, and I thought that was really interesting. Whoa, do we have Ernie for a second? How's it going, dude? Kind of speed running some builds, talking about it, building a Machina live, just working away. I had to do some cabinet work today with my dad, helping him wrap up an install. I think today was one of the last kind of warm days in Oregon of the summer. We'll see how that goes. I'm not super anticipating it. So part of the magic of the left side of the Machina, just a little spoiler for anyone who doesn't know that much about how pedal circuits work and such, is that kind of the secret to its gated, wild sound is having a pair of transistors that are asymmetrical HFE ratings. So like the amount of gain that they get at current is different between the pair of transistors that are in the PNP part of the circuit. So essentially what that nets you is this controlled but also kind of wild gated sound. And so that's kind of one of the secrets of that circuit the way I do it. So I just loaded in all the transistors here. And so this is gonna just needs a couple capacitors, and this one's ready to start soldering and assembling. We'll have to see. I always say I'm not going to drill the cases on stream, and then I end up having to. To do this build completely, I'll end up having to drill, but I'm going to prep the harnesses first, and then we'll... Oh, very cool. Wow, everybody's hanging out. But yeah, like I said, I had a customer asking to build a Machina live on stream. All the gain and all the treble. Yeah. The one thing I will say, if I may have mentioned this a little bit before, is that I'm a huge fan of the sender now after playing it at volume. So the sender was a good pedal. I knew it was a good pedal. I liked it. But part of how I've been capturing my demos is I run into my whole rig that has the attenuator, and in the room I've been playing it relatively quietly. So like I'm playing my guitar about like the volume you'd have watching a movie at home, not super loud, but there's definitely some volume, and there's some low end, and the full frequency range, you're hearing it. It's all there. Here, one sec, I gotta take a Gatorade cig. But basically what I realized is in my demos I need to be pushing the volume in the room to where my speakers are interacting with my pickups a little bit more during my demos. Get a little more of the true sound of what I'm doing. There we go. Oh, no, I don't like that angle. There we go. Maybe it's more like this. But yeah, we are coming along. And I just got an email from Troy, who was watching. If he pops back in, I will touch base with him. But yeah, we are working on the Machina. Oh, the center and the volume in the room. Right. So basically, what I realized is that these pedals sound completely different once they're kind of at volume in the room, where the amp is responding more with the guitar. It gets a lot richer sound with a lot more sustain, and it sounds a lot better than when you're just playing a small amp. Like if I'm not playing it loud enough, I don't get the same response, even though I have the power tube saturation, the preamp tube saturation, and all that stuff. And so, yeah, I realized that was kind of the missing ingredient in my sound. And now I think I have it dialed, the formula to get that correct sound. So yes. It's all really important too. But yeah, I'm gonna try and get all these built tonight. I might do all of it on stream. I might not. I don't expect everyone to hang out for the entire stream. That probably get kind of lengthy, just especially with interactions and building. But I'll do the best I can to hang out and answer a lot of questions. Hopefully I don't lose my voice or lose too much steam, like I do every time when I stream for almost 2 hours. Yeah, you gotta be moving some air, man. That's the secret to guitar tone. It was just reinforced when I was playing those demos again. Highly encourage anyone that hasn't in a while. Like, your whole rig will sound completely different if you're used to playing at kind of a lower volume. And I'm not talking about blasting, like not blasting at your neighbors, not shaking the walls, but really getting some interaction between the guitar and the speakers. Like, once you can, this is kind of my guideline too, is like, once the amp is loud enough that you can't really hear the sound of the strings at all, like that metallic sound of you hitting the strings, like once the amp is louder than that to where you don't really hear that anymore, I think that is kind of the sweet spot. Sorry, I had to check a build document real quick. And yep. And then, so we actually aren't super far off from being able to solder all this stuff and maybe get the harnesses completely ready. Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a time and place for practice for, you know, you don't need to be blasting, but then there's a time where if you really want to sound like what your rig sounds like at its best, you got to be pushing a little more air. I think that's the secret for sure. Like actually some amps will sound worse if they're at 10 or whatever. You know, like not all amps will sound their best like full blown, full bore. Like some amps did, especially back in the day, because you were getting like all the extra saturation from each stage that was doing something. So you had, you had power tube saturation, you had speaker distortion, you had preamp distortion, especially on old Marshalls, which is kind of my favorite sound anyway. And I don't think you necessarily need all of that saturation and distortion. Can you run a clean boost going to turbo? Sure. I would probably run it the opposite of that. Oh, and Troy, did you just email me? I saw it pop up. I can't respond while I'm on stream. I saw the highlights. I'll get them out to you as absolutely soon as I can. I'll take a look at the list again and see where you're at. I think that was kind of the nature of the email. I just saw the headlines pop up. This week, I'm coming up a little short on some old orders for time, but I absolutely have to get these units done for two purposes. Number one, I have to shoot some demo content, and number two, I need to get them sent to a dealer in the UK. So I'm trying to have these units ready because he's kind of want to check some units out tomorrow. So, oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of the nature of where it's at. I will get you a better ETA once I take a look at the build list again and kind of see where I'm at right now. I always say, this week, and then something kind of comes up, because right now the priority is getting out, especially any June orders and July orders, especially the earlier July, later June orders is going to be the priority. But to answer, someone asked a question, what would sound better, a clean boost into a dirty boost? I would probably do it the opposite. So I would have, you're making like the distortion louder rather than making your guitar louder into the distortion, if that makes sense. So that the way that the stacking would go, I think I would like that better. But yeah, that's just kind of how I would stage it. Just offhand, it totally depends on what the pedal circuits are, because not all pedal circuits are created equal, and some have more headroom and some have less. So for those of you who know or don't know, this, show it on screen, is the vintage germanium transistor that goes in the right side of the Machina pedal. And these are Japanese vintage germanium transistors. Believe it or not, the left side of the Machina does not sound better with germanium transistors. I don't think it sounds as tight and articulate. Like, I like the softer then this is something one of my friends told me, and I think it's super relevant to share here, is that Like germanium as a whole sounds better for kind of softer sounds because it has a little softer attack. It usually doesn't have as much gain. I mean, they are great in certain vintage circuits, but for like an overdrive, like what the percolator is, what this thing that I'm literally building right now is, this sounds great with germanium. I think it sounds really super good. Um, but you can always run pedals in whatever order you want. Like some particular pedals might sound better boosting the other one and vice versa. Like it really just depends. Like in the case, so I'll give you an example. There's a pedal that's going to come out sometime in the near future that we're planning. I don't know the official release date or when I'll have the prototype built and if I'll even announce it right away. But I have a new pedal coming out called the Drone Gazer that's a collab between Fuzz Imp and Fuzz Drones that's going to be coming out sometime in the future. And it'll look super sick. And basically what that pedal is my two-knob sender pedal running into a customized rat pedal with a mode voicing switch. That'll be super cool. But we decided on that order after he was saying that like the sender is louder than the rat circuit, but the way that the rat circuit saturates getting hit with that fuzzy distortion, it sounds really good. And then the way the filter control works, it ends up working out really nice. But yeah, these boards are ready to start soldering. So we'll start doing that now. Let the iron warm up a little bit. Also be doing all the off-board jack wiring, or the pot wiring rather. It's going to happen there. So the Machina has 4 off-board pots, and then the this way so I don't lose it. Sorry. And then this side just has one, the percolator side. Yeah, it's like I said, it really comes down to preference. For anyone who's wondering what's going on that's watching on YouTube, I also am streaming on Instagram and answering questions there as well. And I'll try, if I'm answering a question, I'll try and reflect it, what the question was, so there's some context for what's being said. Yeah, I think I mentioned in the header for both videos, if you were looking at a Fuzz Imp pedal, right now you can use code FUZZ for 10% off and snag yourself a really good deal. We did just recently do some price changes, but it really only affected anything that was at the lower end of the price point. So, like the sender went up to kind of reflect the time that it takes. The Machina has stayed the same. Oh, another piece of news. You guys can give me a little feedback if you want. So I've been thinking about it and talking about it, kind of brainstorming it in a couple different places online, and I think what's going to happen is my pedal that is called the Crusher 2 is going to be, the art is going to be redone and it's going to be renamed, and it's going to be called the Sleeper Drive exclusive promotion. Mike, what is in your fuzz now that I think about it? Mike just asked, he got one of the pedals from the giveaway that I was doing on previous live streams. It's a good question. Well, it's based on a Bongfire. Oh, that's right. Yours has a BC108. It has a BC108 and a BC109, if I remember right. Or maybe it has a 549 and a BC109. I can't remember off the top of my head. Basically, if it's got a metal can top, that's a BC108 or 109. It's just, there's different packages, they call it, of different transistors. And the BC108 is a very popular transistor. I use the same Basically, a BC549 or 549C is an identical transistor in a different package to the BC108. And I use that in my one knob fuzzes. It's a very, very popular, known quantity transistor, but it just sounds so good. The way they saturate, I really like. They saturate in a really pleasant way in fuzz. You know, like you can read the data sheet and tech specs on any component and kind of get a ballpark of what they do. But I don't think that really defines what they sound like, especially in a given circuit. And I just happen to like the sound of the BC549 and 549C. The BC108 and 109, which are the equivalent parts. The modern equivalent, as they would say. They've been out, for 50 years. But yeah, I really enjoy that in fuzz. I just have a handful of transistors I really like. With the old company, I had a product called the Monocle. It was pretty popular. I think it was my first original offering, more or less. And what I learned building a ton of those is about how different PNP transistors. So PNP transistor is kind of an old school way of the way a transistor works. It's basically like an inverted ground, the way it's wired. You can get a little lost in the weeds here, but basically there's not a lot of circuits that use PNP conventionally anymore. It is mainly an old school kind of fuzz thing, but what's interesting about those is the way that they interact with each other and all the different ones. There's not as much out there about how they all work, just because they're not as popular. They're not as popular as NPN in like a muff or something, because of it's easier to make the way it works. It's easier to make negative ground circuits versus positive ground. If you don't know what any of that means, that is okay. But basically, and some more people just jumped on stream. Basically, I'm going to try and build all the flagship pedals in one stream and see as far as I can get. Maybe do the testing cycle and show that on stream. It really just depends. I'll do my best. I might have to do some drilling, which is kind of not as fun to watch on stream, but we'll see how far we get. But anyway, so I experimented a lot with PNP in this particular circuit that eventually became the left side of the Machina. Is the way it kind of endured throughout the history of the company. And the reason I chose those particular transistors is how it goes. But yeah. But yeah, we're going to do, especially since this will be on YouTube, it was, the violets were, I believe, there was one positive ground muff that was made, and I think it was that. Because they ran on batteries back then, they could be wired positive ground. It was kind of a weird thing, the way that we power circuits now. Basically, the way we wire circuits now to run off DC, it makes more sense to do it where a circuit has negative ground throughout. But I believe you are correct. Mike was mentioning the violet ram's head. I believe that one was one of the only positive ground ones, and because it had germanium transistors in it, and it was a pretty cool one. I know I've shared before, there was one for sale very recently, one of my unicorn collectibles someday, when I have so much money that I don't have to worry about it ever again, is to own a Mike Matthews Red Army Overdrive, which is the very first Sovtech Big Muff, and it looks really cool, and it was a bit different in spec, But basically, they're just super rare and collectible. They're from like 1990, around the time I was born. They're super cool. They're super rare. And one came up for sale not long ago. They only come up for sale about once every 18 months or so, unless you know a collector that has one. Like if I wanted a Civil War pedal muff, Civil War muff, I know two people personally that have them that would be willing to sell them to me for market rate. With that Red Army going publicly for sale, it landed at $2,550. So they're very rare. They're very expensive. You probably won't see very many of them. It's a pretty exceptional piece of history because so few survived. There might have only been hundreds made, but a lot of that old stuff, has kind of disappeared. I mean, there's always going to be closet finds and random Goodwill finds or thrift store finds and what have yous, but now that everyone kind of has the internet, if something old comes in, you would think they would kind of check the value on it, but that's one of my collectibles. Part of it is just because I know as I get older, there's going to be things that I wish I could have bought that I just couldn't afford. That I couldn't have afforded now, but they'll be selling like that same pedal. The next one that sells will be like 3,000. The next one that sells will be like 3,500. And in 10 years they'll be like $5,000, and I'll be like, why didn't I just buy one when it was 2.5 or whatever? But anyway, that's kind of how collecting goes. I used to think spending more than $30 on a pedal was too much when I was first getting back into pedals. Yeah, I think Alex over on Instagram mentioned he wants a V from '96. I think it would be cool to get like a birth year guitar. I'm not sure what I would choose. My birth year is 1990, and so I'm not sure what piece of gear I would want to chase down. I don't know who was really at their peak. Ibanez was making some cool stuff around then. I think they had Universes from 90, or maybe it was 91. It's pretty early in the 90s when Vi was rolling out the Gem Universes. I definitely would like to have an older one. I don't know that it'll happen, but I don't know. I'm kind of a sucker for that 80s Guitar Hero, late 80s, early 90s Guitar Hero scene. Like all those Super Shredder guys. Oh, part of the process we're on. This is me just clipping all the resistors that I've soldered in. I've soldered in all the components. Now we just have to do pots and jacks and stuff like that, and switches. And so that'll just take a minute. We got all this. But yeah, that's kind of the stuff that I really gravitate towards as far as things that I would want to spend money on. It's Russian muffs that are really collectible, and maybe some cool signature guitars from some of my Guitar Heroes. I do really like the Eric Johnson Strat as well. I don't know if like, what's your guys' favorite signature guitar? I don't have any qualms about playing somebody else's signature guitar as long as it's kind of yeah. That would be tough. Cool. So one thing that you have to do especially when you do a lot of stuff pretty quick, is you kind of have to investigate every solder point. Like I was doing all that clipping, I'm making sure that like especially like this electrolytic here, exactly what I was just talking about, what I need to look for. So basically, you want to make sure that there's no like the components that we're coming up against. Oh, perfect. Yeah. Nice. We got Dean from Hell Dime Bag. We got white Bengal tar striping. Custom shop Jackson. Oh yeah. Jason Richardson's Ernie Ball. That's a cool one. One of my friends had one of those. Like not super long ago. I think he traded up. He went with like a Mayonnaise Super Strat. Yeah, the Sovtek Green Russian. I'll be honest and say that I haven't owned one personally. So I've had like 3 or 4 black ones, and I had 2 at once that were really cool. I haven't had a green one, so I can't 100% say for sure what they do. I know what the circuit sounds like, and I know about the differences between the black and the green. It's definitely a cool collector piece. I would like to own one. Maybe like a player's grade that I could mod the jacks up to modern stuff and maybe use more, and maybe keep one more original to kind of have as a collector's item. I know Kevin D from Pedal Boards of Actual Doom. He's a big, kind of prolific muff collector. I think he's actually Sovtech Fuzz or Sovtech Muff on Instagram. He posts a lot of really cool fuzz pictures, he has a public profile. It's not like a private one. But he just recently got into a lot of David Main designs, DAM audio, which I thought was kind of an interesting transition. Sorry for the coffees. I've been talking too much. Yeah, so basically the whole lineage of Russian muffs works kind of like this. They use lower gain transistors than any of the other ones that have come out, as far as I know. They have the lowest gain / HFE ratings of any of them. So what that means is you kind of have a warmer sound with less fuzz and more of a distortion character, and that's kind of attributes to that sound that bassists prefer, the kind of the Russian muff sound. And I always preferred it when I was kind of starting out with those kinds of pedals, because I was more of I like more of like a grunge sound than like a vintage singing like really thick muff sound. And that was before I had a Marshall and was kind of interacting with fuzz well. The Spectacle. I almost did have a pedal called the Spectacle. I actually could show you what it looked like. So what it was, and this was just an attempt, we made a custom board, show it on both screens. This was supposed to be a monocle and my one knob fuzz with a phase switch and a blend. What is the thing? Oh, okay. Yeah, it's got like, it had like a blend control, level control. Long story short, it didn't work. Something with the way the foot switching worked, it didn't work. But I almost wonder, I could take a look at this again. I have a prototype built. I don't want to devote too much time to messing around with prototypes, but I almost wonder there's maybe a way I could hardwire it so both channels are on, and then you could just have one big sound and then have the bypass. So I may actually be able to get one of these to work again. So it's funny that you say that, talking about the monocle. But yeah, the Machina is going to be like, I think, the final evolution of that circuit. You really don't want to add too much more to it because it'll start to load down the signal. Because just the way that those circuits work. Okay, so now what we're going to do, I may have to bring the YouTube guys down a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. Get you resituated a little bit. Let's see if I can pop that up. Cool. So now we're going to do some pot wiring. I mean, so that prototype thing I was just showing, I have a bunch of the boards, but basically the 2 circuits in one, it functions, but it was supposed to be like one or the other or both. But yeah, Alex, just DM me and remind me. I have some other stuff I could tell you about too. Alex over on Instagram was asking about that prototype. I have a couple other products that just never went to market that are really cool. But yeah, always trying new stuff. Right now, my priority, like I said, I have been kind of twofold, helping my dad and trying to pay rent this month. And so I haven't had as much time on the bench as I wanted this week. Working really hard to get caught up on some legacy orders. And because there's like, basically the way ordering has gone is there's been like a block of work, and then there'll be, kind of a wave where it kind of dies down, and then there'll be another block of work, stuff like that. Yeah, trying to make sure everybody gets taken care of. But you know, things are going well, and I think the company is about to take a big turn this upcoming month with my participation at 42 Gear Street, which was, I sent a pedal in, Henning Pauly running that event in Germany. I think that'll be really super good exposure for the company. Ryan from 60 Cycle Hum shot a demo that I know of. Trey from Gear Gods shot a demo with my pedal. Then I have kind of some contact with a few other influencers that we might do some follow-up videos that were also there. So they're on board to do some additional content that's like a standalone video just on my pedal down the road. So that'll be really cool. Kind of open up some new opportunities. And yeah, I mean, I try. Okay, so I was just making a comment about being okay with a little bit of lead time. I try to be as fair as possible. There are sometimes exceptions where, for example, like when I'm trying to promote a new product, like I kind of went through a weird phase where I discontinued like 12 products at once, and I had to rebuild a company, you know, from scratch, and I still had legacy orders. So as I was figuring out these new products, I'm still trying to keep up with legacy products. Just a lot of different orders going on, and I try to keep everyone as happy as I have. People have been very patient with me, and I so appreciate it, you know. But at the same time, I'm not the most patient person in the world, and I would rather have my stuff sooner rather than later. So I get where people are coming from when they email and they want to know where their stuff is, and I try to give realistic estimates. One of my biggest mistakes, and I will always apologize for this for anyone this has happened to. So someone emails to check in on their status on a build, right? And that's cool. I want to hear from people, and I can kind of gauge how excited someone is about some gear or something. And then I'll give them an estimate, and I say, okay, you know, based on where I'm at right now, I kind of will take a look at the build list and be like, okay, yeah, I should be, you know, to XYZ on the build list. Next, like I always say, and this is my mistake, is I always will kind of infer or say next week, and then a bunch of crap hits the fan and stuff like that. Yeah. No, people tend to be really understanding. It's only happened a handful of times I've really had an upset customer, and I always will, you know, jump to... My goal is that everyone gets the best customer experience, but I also can't just rush through builds either. And I also can't put people on the back burner. So that's kind of my philosophy about the whole thing. It's like I want to be fair, but basically the reason that some people have stuff that's newer than some legacy products was my prototyping process, and also just when I put in the initial orders for cases. See, some of it is just my process for how I order cases. I kind of do it in batches, about twice a week. Sometimes not. Sometimes at a different rate than that. But anyway, everyone gets their pedal. That's definitely coming. If it's later than the 3 weeks that I quoted, I apologize. You know, I do my best to get stuff out in a timely manner, but, you know, sometimes there's complications or parts issues or what have you. So what I'm doing right now, if you couldn't tell, is adding all the potentiometers. Yeah. And I shipped out 10 pedals on Friday. Like I get stuff out per week for sure, but yeah, man. But that sender pedal, man, that one really, like, it went from being like, this is a good offering, this is a, you know, something cool to bring to market, to like, this is my favorite pedal right now. Like the sender, the two knob, it's based on a muff. It's not a muff at all. The thing that I basically have said to people is, and I've tried to recreate it. Like I have all the stuff that says, okay, you use all these parts, it'll sound like a Russian muff. And I try it, and it doesn't really have the vibe that I got from my Russian muffs. I'm like, I don't know why. And I know some of it's the funky parts that they used back in the day, especially the pots, are not like what we use now. And I think that's part of it. I think it's maybe just the way the components were made. And the thing about those classic Sovtechs that's so funny is a lot of those were cheaply built. Like those Russian muffs were built with like ultra cheap Chinese parts. You know, they sell for boutique money, but they were made. They sound great too. I'm not knocking that, but I'm just saying that they were made with like the cheapest possible parts that were available. They weren't like the super boutique stuff that we have now or anything, and they weren't necessarily super reliable, especially if you look at the hardware stuff. The jacks and switches are absolutely notorious on those bad boys. But the old knobs definitely look super cool. I love everything about them other than, you know, I wouldn't do this on a, yeah, and from a tonal perspective, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Just from a functionality perspective, I think the having you know having pots and jacks that are going to hold up to longer term use, I think is pretty important in the modern landscape of gear. Like you can't just put out a pedal that's only going to last somebody 6 months, if that. Like the jacks that they use, especially on black Russians, oh my goodness, they're like worse than what's in a $20 Behringer as far as quality. Like that's basically what the equivalent would be, like a super bottom barrel jack. Yeah, they did. They were an interesting. Like basically, I like the history. Well, over on YouTube, talking about green Russians and muffs in general. Oh, to get back to my point and how the sender came to be. So the sender, I really wanted to bring like what I thought was cool in a muff circuit, and bring it to the market, but there just wasn't a lot of interest. And to be honest, Electro-Harmonix and a ton of other builders do a way better job than I ever could at replicating those old sounds. So if you see now, we've got a little octopus, half an octopus, but this is the inside of a Machina. And then I just realized that's why you don't talk. You can't talk and think at the same time. The leads on this particular one have to be custom cut, but that is okay. We'll fix it. Happens to me every time. If I don't fix it now, it won't work when I go to do it. But we'll do the foot switches real quick first. I already had these soldered up, but yeah. Normally I use ribbon cables, and actually, yeah, that's fine. We got this. The thing about the Machina is it does involve quite a bit of off-board wiring, but I don't mind because I really like this build. It's a really strong offering, and people are really digging it that have them. It is a lot of value. I mean, when you look at what a builder would charge for a custom fuzz factory or a custom percolator with germanium, I mean, those are, at the bottom tier of those are each $100 pedal. My pedal has two tied together in the coolest looking case you've ever seen. Just a quick plug for the Machina. And obviously I'll bust out the case here in a second, and we'll show it on screen. when I'm doing this soldering on this, sorry, sometimes I have to concentrate just a little bit. Yes, you have the left side. I am going to release the right side standalone with silicone sometime in the future. I promoted it and put a video out. Originally, I was going to do it like this weekend, but with the drone gazer coming out, I don't want to dilute that artist offering, and I really am trying to limit myself on having too many new models coming out at the same time. Because as much as I like it, I want to let the product line kind of breathe on its own and let people kind of check out each of the offerings and get an idea of what each does. Because it is easy to overwhelm people. Well, the last thing we want is option paralysis, as they call it. So what we're doing here, we got to run some custom wiring. There's going to be more custom wiring on this too. But this is just for the squish knob on the Machina. It needs a little bit longer leads than my pre-cut wire. And I already know if I don't do it now, I'll get everything else in place and I'll have to change it. It's going to be called the Drone Gazer. I'm also doing a rebrand of the... I'm going to do a rebrand on the crusher pedal. It's going to be called the Sleeper Drive, and it's going to have a slightly different aesthetic to it. Because that pedal is probably one of the best distortions / drives on the market, and I really don't think the... No, I'm really safe with the current pricing. It just was on the lower end, so like bumping the sender up from 88 to 100, for example. That just is to more accurately reflect the amount of time that it costs, that it takes, rather. Not how much it costs, but the time. Because time is actually the most expensive part of any build. In general, I was talking to my dad about this quite a bit. I'll get back to what I'm releasing, but just a quick tangent. So, like, a person only has so much time. Oh, thank you. Yeah, and definitely, and use code Fuzz if you want to in the store. I'm not going to run huge coupons anytime soon. I kind of want to let this pricing breathe, but I also have updated all my international pricing to be more affordable. But release schedule, going back to it. I am going to release the right side of the Machina standalone as a one knob pedal, but I may have it retooled to a different version that I made, that it has an additional boost stage in it, so it has kind of a different flavor than that one does. I may put that one out, and I'm really excited about what that can turn into. But yeah, the next public release will probably be the Drone Gazer, which is essentially the sender into a custom rat pedal with a really cool looking case. And it'll be kind of a collaboration custom shop kind of a spin on a combination of the sender and a rat pedal. I haven't 100% decided on pricing, but I think it will land right around 165 because of all the work that's involved in it and how much effort it takes for each circuit, which really is not that much if you think about it, because each of those pedals on their own would probably be 120, but 165 gets it as a nice fair price. And I'm also, so I had a couple people reach out recently, just to make it clear on my stance. I'm not really wanting to take on anything custom anymore, as far as like full custom. I will build you a legacy product if it's something that I've done before. That can be arranged, so things like the Praise the Sun, the Shroot, the Bonfire, the Fuzz Fire. Those are options that can be ordered via email. And then, you just PayPal in. Instead of buying it off the website, you just arrange it through the business PayPal, and you get a tracking number and everything like that. So that is an option, but I'm not going to take on any full customs or anything super time-consuming build-wise for the time being, just because I'm anticipating a pretty big wave of orders here in a few weeks, and I don't want to overcommit to anything that I can't pull off. in a reasonable time frame. So right now my priority is going to be, first and foremost, is on existing customers and existing product line. But I will hear people out. It just depends. Well, like I said, legacy product is still open. I can still get the cases printed. It's just a matter of, okay, from when you order, this is kind of the time frame, and this is how much it costs, kind of a thing. But yeah, I try to be really reasonable with my pricing. Okay, Alex has a question on Instagram. Go ahead and ask it. So what we're doing right now is the initial off-board foot switch wiring that's going to go on this Machina. I'll probably grab the case and drill it real quick, so you can see that part of the process. It's actually coming along pretty good. There isn't that much more left. So once the case is drilled, then I'll be running some wire. No, Alex, that particular product does not. See, he was asking about the Pyromancer, if it had germanium transistors. So that is an op-amp based pedal. Actually, here's a board for one. This is what the... Oh, cool, really? Paul, if it's not on the website, let me update that. And I just changed my shipping rates, so that should be cheaper for you. But yeah, send me an email if you're interested in that. I kind of need to order another one of those cases soon anyway. I have a couple, but I'm worried if I scratch one up, I need to order another one. No, so okay, we're gonna have a very interesting explanation. Transistors versus diodes. So Alex was asking, does that have germanium transistors? No, it has some. These are not actual germanium diodes. This is a diode. So it's two legs. Basically, the way a diode works is it kind of, as signal passes through it, it kind of squishes it and limits it. And usually it overloads the diode in such a way that it makes extra clipping, and it sounds cool. So this is a diode. Transistor typically has, grab one that I can actually grab, 3 legs. It basically has an input and output and a ground, more or less. Sorry, I had a little piece of cardboard. Transistor, diode. I know myself, I've thought I was talking about the one and I meant the other one. Make sure that I got the right, yeah. But, yeah, that's the difference. It's the way they work. Alex's pedal has essentially the same clipping array that is in the Surprise V2, which I'll try and build on stream. I have a feeling the Machina is going to end up taking as much energy as I have on stream, but we'll see how we do. So now I have to drill it. And by the way, I still love the case art on these. At least the best case art I've ever done. Ooh. So, Machina. Super cool art. This is the compact version. I do make it in a bigger version. The only reason the bigger one exists is because I had a customer concerned that the bottom knob that's going to go right here is a little bit too close to the foot switch, and they had big feet, and so they wanted the bigger version. So we made a bigger version. And I scaled it as such, so this gear pattern that you see, the knobs fit in the middle exactly, and there's 2 different sizes. There's a bigger one and like a medium one, and the medium one goes on the regular size. So anyway, that's the only difference between those. It's the same circuit in both. Yeah, it's a killer. It's a killer circuit, proven to be very popular with customers. I'm gonna do drilling on stream for a second. I'm sorry that this is not like fun on stream, but we'll get through it really quick. I get a lot of questions, so I pre-drill a hole. That's pretty small. And I basically have this big cardboard box in my lap that all the shavings will go into so they don't go onto the floor and make a big mess in my house. Even having made coming up on 500 pedals in this house, I actually haven't made that big of a mess because of this system. So, fun fact. But yeah, I pre-drill with a small bit, and then I go through and I'll ream it out with a step bit, and the step bit has a brand new bit, and so it moves really fast. And like I said, bear with me, we're almost there. It sounded like a Ministry song. Yeah, I work at a cabinet shop, and there's always like a compressor running, and then something's banging, and it starts to sound like. One sec. I will answer your question, Alex. Okay. The reason I do hand drilling too is because I find I have a lot more control with it, and I just realized my step bit battery is in the other room, so I'll have to run and go grab it. You can see I pre-drilled everything. I actually did a very slight, I do a very slight offset from my guide holes. It only shifts a couple of the knobs around a couple millimeters because I'm going for a certain setup. But yeah, this is a Machina. Super cool. Got people jumping in. Germanium diodes, I think, actually do sound good in some pedals. But I use these BAT41s, they're called, and they are about the equivalent. They're a little more consistent and reliable. They sound very, very similar. They have what they call a similar forward voltage drop as a germanium diode does. And so I use those either in hybrid or in full, depending on the particular circuit. What I found is that on that right side of the Machina, the one that's the one knob overdrive fuzz, essentially, is that particular, I use a hybrid clipping array that's like a mix. It's like in between, so it's got some warmth and it's got a little bit of clarity too. So if it's too warm, then it gets kind of mushy. If it's too bright, it gets kind of clangy. So you got to kind of split the difference and make it a hybrid. I got to go run and grab my battery. Be right back. One sec, I'm gonna grab something from my fridge real quick. battery. Sorry for the leaving the stream briefly. This part will go quick. But yeah, I use a hybrid clipping setup in most of my pedals. I found that if it's too much of one thing, it doesn't necessarily have all the characteristics that I like. Sometimes it took me a couple tries to find the right. No, I know. Yeah, Alex, that's what I meant. Yeah, yours has LEDs and a hybrid array, which is kind of my standard setup now. I have some carefully chosen LEDs and a mix of that circuit that I use. You can see my new drill bit is working really super nice. This will go really fast. I might need to get just a new pre-drill bit. I got a 6-pack, and they're not very good, so maybe I need to get a new one. Like that is just... So I'm counting the steps as I go. I cannot express to you how much joy having a fresh drill bit brings to my life. So yeah, there's your Machina all drilled out. Now we got to get it loaded with stuff. This does need a little bit of off-board wiring that'll take just a second, but before long we'll have a full-blown working Machina. It'll be very exciting. Oh yeah. No, yeah, LEDs for clipping is huge. And then, like I said, I do a hybrid for the silicone that I like. Oh, I saw Mike's question. Let me see if I can pull that up. Live option. There we go. Do I have colors? Yes. Mike asked what colors LED I use for clipping. It depends on what pedal it is. Ironically, the Surprise, I really like orange LEDs for clipping. They're kind of in between yellow and green, if I remember right. Red I will use if it's a rat. Sometimes I'll do a hybrid, like a green with a red. But yeah, in Alex's case, I did use reds in his as well. I'm sure all those are good. Yep. Cool. Ready to load all the circuits in. Sweet. And now I'm gonna line up the LED, and we got this little bezel guy that sits in there nice to kind of shroud it and keep it from shorting out to the case. This part is like a little bit finicky. Like you gotta get the depth and all that just right how you want it. And then I have shown this before on other streams. Apologize if you've seen it before. But these are my favorite tool in the shop. So this is basically a machine socket set that won't scratch a painted finish. So you got your nicely installed LED now. And this also works for all the ones, like all the pots and jacks. And then when I'm completely done, I'll check, and if it feels like there's any give at all, I'll go through and I will do a final tighten with like a more aggressive wrench. But most of the time, this is enough, especially if I really put a little bit of pressure on it. It's a great tool. I get a lot of mileage out of that. Cool. Then we're going to load up the rest of the machina here. It's this octopus-looking harness. That one has been flipped. Yeah, red LED in some, green LED in some, and then orange LED. Orange is probably one of the ones that I use for my signature sound, I would say, and that goes in the Surprise V2. It has orange LED clipping, and it has, yeah, Alex, remind me, I'll tell you, I'll give you some options. Yeah, if anybody ever wants like one of my pedals but with a twist or something, I can usually accommodate that, especially if it's things that aren't really graphics wise. That's something I get a lot of requests for, like custom graphics and stuff. The thing is there's other shops that are just better set up for that. Like, my whole thing is to try and stick to kind of like a production style assembly, but with, you know, the boutique feel. So you're getting a custom shop grade pedal, but it's off a little more, it's all hand built and everything, but it's on more of like a menu system. It's like if you went to, like, going to In-N-Out Burger, right? Like, you go to In-N-Out Burger, like, everything they make is good, but it's still fairly affordable. That's what I am. I am the In-N-Out Burger of the Fuzz world. One thing that you saw me trying to do there, and I'm just trying to be really careful with this case because I don't want to scratch it. And sometimes, depending on how these end up, I may go... Mike is being a funny guy over on YouTube. Said he wants a Shroot in a 1918 caboose. And I said, you are being silly. You're being a silly man right now. Yeah, if I had my way and it was sustainable, every single thing I built would be completely custom. But it makes things a little bit more complicated on the back end. And then there's less consistency from product to product. So what I want, especially on the circuit side, I want things to be kind of consistent and people to get what they pay for. And I want to be able to provide consistent service. So one thing I just noticed that I have to be really careful about on this build specifically, it has a lot of these, is that I always double check and pull on these solder joints. Sometimes if I pull too soon, it'll leave like a little channel in this solder dot. So right now you can see this has a tiny bit of play in it. It probably would have been totally fine and functioned and everything, but there's a chance that maybe it like could shake loose and kind of slide out. And so we can't have that. So we're gonna just, all that it takes to fix this is 2 seconds with a soldering gun. But if I didn't do it, then it might have created problems down the road. That's the difference. Sometimes the difference between having a perfect pedal and a pedal that someone could have an issue with is an extra 2 seconds of checking that someone didn't do. So that's kind of why my stuff takes time, because there's a lot of little stuff that has to be perfectly checked and made sure that it's going to work. See? Now it's good. Now I have these pots. They're all going to get tied in. So this is for the squish control, which is the... this is kind of an interesting control. On the Fuzz Factory, this control is called comp, like compression, which is why I named it squish. It's kind of an interesting function. technically kind of what it does, what it sounds like in the circuit, but where it is in the circuit is kind of an interesting thing. And so I think of it as like a field control. So it kind of changes the dynamic feel. I guess it is kind of got like a compression-y sound to it, but I just don't feel like that's the most accurate, you know, descriptor of what it actually does. One thing that gets me sometimes, and it almost just got me here, is the other thing about talking and building, is if you take the nut and collar off of the nut and washer off of the pot. So sometimes, you know, I'll just kind of jam it in there and then realize and try and throw an extra set on there, and it's like, oh, you dummy, you forgot to take it off. Why didn't you fix it? It's basically what pedals comes down to. It's like a ton of little micro decisions and making sure that they're all done correctly. So the more you can refine your process, and that's why, you know, I like to keep build semi-consistent. I mean, I like to mix things up too, but in terms of like being really familiar with a particular circuit and all the things that go into that build, I want to make sure that the pedal is going to come out consistently good every time. Especially on a build like this, is super involved. Like this is about an hour and a half start to finish build. If I wasn't talking on the phone, I might be able to, I'm talking on the phone. Oh no. If I wasn't talking on live stream, I might get it done, you know, because I'm not having to explain or enjoying conversating, catching up with people. This would probably go a lot faster, but that's kind of how it goes. But time flies when you're having fun. One thing we're doing right now is kind of test fitting how everything's fitting in, making sure it's sitting in there good. I think I am. Executive decision has been made. I'm going to change one thing. So I can get these nice and snug and looking good without these lock nut deals on here, but I'm kind of feeling like I wanna use one here. Actually, I want to change that depth too. Especially, you know, the Machina is arguably the most expensive pedal, or it's both versions of it. It's the most, you know, it's the flagship product on the menu. It's not cheap. Like, I really, in my mind, you know, I want to make sure these all come out perfect. Every single one, every single pedal that somebody orders gets this level of attention on it. It's like, okay, you know, did I need to make that tiny little tweak that no one probably would have noticed? It's like, yes, I have to, because this is for my customers and my friends that are all getting these pedals. Like, I want them to look and feel and be perfect. And that's why my stuff takes a little bit of time. I want every single pedal to be the best, like if it was the only pedal that ever went out. So that's how we roll. Right now, basically visually checking the LED depth and making sure that they're all sitting in there nice. Yeah, and even, it doesn't matter that, like, some builds are just less complex. It's not that I give them any less attention, but they have, you know, they have less moving parts. They have less potential to, for me to make a mistake that's dumb or something like that, right? And so that's the only difference, is there just might be less of that process. It's not that I put any less attention into another particular build, but yeah, you really don't have a choice, because anytime I've ever rushed, like, I'm really bad about this particular thing that I'm about to describe, is like final check right before I need to ship stuff out on like a Friday. like a pedal be built, tested, basically done, but I need to do the final assembly and the all the little final check stuff. Like I'll make sure that the jack is perfectly tight. Oh, here, you guys shift it a little bit. Let's get you fixed up. There we go. Whew. Okay. So right now, got our Machina boards sitting in there real nice. Ooh, look at that. Look how clean this one is. You'll see it all wired up in a second. There's a few connections that I can do with my pre-cut wire, but there's a few that I cannot, that I have to do with custom wiring. So I'm gonna knock those out now. So like all the off-board stuff that connects the clean signal path, so the path that goes through the bypass, that has to all be custom wired. It's not crazy time consuming, but I just want to make sure that it's all cut to fit as good as I can do it. And then sometimes I'll kind of line them around the pedal. If by just visually looking at them I can't tell where they go, but these ones I can, so I'm not super worried about it. So like this one is going to get a custom wire here, and then it's going to get custom power. And that should cover it besides pre-cut. So we're in the home stretch now. I know it might have seemed like a lot of talking and a lot of deliberation, but that's how these live streams always go. But I super enjoy it, and a customer asked me to do a complete Machina build live, and so that's what we did. Probably do this, make sure it's all good to go, and then you guys get to experience probably the scariest part of every build, which is, okay, I did all the work, let's go plug it in and see if it actually, if I did everything correctly. Is it going to work the first time? Or do I have to double check, my off-board wiring, did I put everything where it's supposed to go? Okay, is this scenario, did I need to do something different here or there or whatnot? I'm getting to the point now where I kind of have a groove on how things go. Someday when I have to train somebody to do all the stuff, as far as just, none of it is particularly difficult, but it's not super intuitive. For those of you who have or haven't built pedals, like there's just some principles of how electricity works and how wiring works that it's just not intuitive. So right now, making sure we got really good solder coverage on these jacks. Yes. You also have to be really careful when you're doing this particular, these solder joints on these jacks, because it's really easy to burn the crap out of your fingers after you've heated it up. So like I heat it up, and I put some solder on it, and you'll go to grab it and move it a little bit too soon. It's like grabbing a hot pan off the stove that's been sitting there for a while, and the handle is normally totally fine, but then like the handle gets really hot and you touch it too soon. That's what you don't want. That is, okay, that's the right one there. It's gonna go like that. We're probably about 5-10 out from being able to fire up and test this bad boy. I know some of you have been on a lot on this live stream, so I appreciate it. Anybody that's taken some of their weekend to hang out. Hey, no one cares checks in for a second. We're doing live building. Speaking of people who do a great job with custom artwork that are not me, No One Cares has fantastic rates and does very clean, beautiful builds. Yeah, I was talking briefly earlier about you know, kind of the direction that I do stuff. I have people ask for custom graphic stuff specifically, and just with my backlog, I can't do it. Go try to point them your way if that's the direction they want on a particular build. Right now we're building a Machina. We did it from start to finish. I had a customer ask the other day on live stream. I've done one before on a live stream, but I couldn't remember which one or if it was still saved. So dual streaming YouTube and Instagram. Right now we're gonna rock out some off-board wiring, and then we'll do jacks, and then we'll do power, and then we'll be done. We'll put some knobs on it. We'll plug it into rock. If anyone was wondering what this is that I'm wiring right now, basically when your pedal is in bypass, it goes from the jacks to the switches, and then this has two circuits, so it goes to the other switch, and then it goes to the output, so it has a clean signal path. And having looked at some like mass manufactured pedals, the way that they wire some of this stuff is pretty janky. You know, I don't know if it's because they do it by robots or what they do, but there's not very much attention to detail given to it. Like these rat pedals. I love the rat pedal, but the way they do their off-board is just really strange. There we go. Just bear with me for 1 second. If I kind of work this all out and do it well, then we can be firing up and testing this bad boy in just a couple minutes. Just kind of what everyone gets really excited about, like I do anyway. So all we have left is power. So you might notice that especially if I'm running wiring, I'll use these guys. Like what I'm doing, I'll show it in a second, is trying to get the cleanest possible runs internally, so when you look into it, not only is there going to be less likelihood of it giving you problems down the road, but it also is going to look really clean. And so that's why some of this takes a little doing. Yeah, oh, for sure. For whatever reason, I have so much. Maybe it's because I'm more relaxed, because I've been having more fun talking and kind of being in the groove, like kind of interacting or something. I feel like my demos go so much better when I've been live streaming. Like I was really digging how some demo stuff I did the other night came out when I jumped, or was on a live stream. Like it was like one of these live streams, and I just took my setup in the other room and started jamming really loud because everyone was at work. Oh man, I do a lot of it. I'm sure you're getting up there in builds though too. I think I'm just shy of the one thing is you can get a little bit too comfortable you can get a little bit too comfortable with the soldering iron, and it just takes one good burn to remind you. Holding a 600-degree pencil doesn't work out that great sometimes if you're not careful. Right now I'm soldering the 9-volt power, and then I just have to solder the ground, put the jacks on, and this is a complete build. Actually, I will pause it for a second. NOC said he's getting scared how I was using the soldering iron, how I wave it around like a crazy person. I actually haven't been burned super bad in a while. It's been good. I've been lucky. You know what's the real one that'll get you though? Is when I'm doing my resistor clipping and it's a little bit too close to my eyeball. Like when it shoots a leg up. So like a resistor has these legs on it, right? These little metal legs for people who don't build pedals. And then after you solder them, you'll run through like I was with the clippers, and you're just clipping them. Well, it has just enough inertia or whatever it is that like as you clip it, it puts enough pressure on the outside that it shoots off kind of rapidly, and it can, it'll shoot across the room or what have you. But I had some near misses where it gets like right here. Oh, I mean, I have a safer process now. That was more so in the early days. I had some more near miss type stuff, but less of that these days. One of these numbers. When you see what I was doing, it'll make more sense. Basically, there's these, I really like these kinds of jacks. They have a very narrow internal terminal for doing two wires. This is the last wire to solder. Yeah. Like I said, it is. I think one of the worst things I ever did was on a stream. I had, like, took part of my finger off or something. Or, no, burns. It's more likely that I'll grab something while it's still hot, like a jack or something, and it'll burn. So one thing we got to check, make sure all those are good. Just double check that those are all wired correctly. They are. I'm going to clip these LED leads while I'm thinking about it. Make sure all these runs are sitting nice and flush. But yeah, now we just have to tighten the jacks and throw some knobs on. Thank you for your patience, everyone who's been watching. I know this is kind of a lengthy process, but legit, I mean, I could probably shave like 45 minutes off of this entire stream. So almost half of what it takes to do this. Maybe not quite that much. It takes at least an hour to build a machina start to finish, but I like doing these streams because it gives some context to the customers on just how much actual work and thought and process went into making their pedal. I feel like it helps give some context. It's like, you know, people have been taking a chance on my company, especially not being able to try one in a store or something. You know, someday I would like to remedy that, where more people could actually try in person. If in-person music stores will even be a thing before too much longer. Not just because of Corona, but because of, you know, physical retail is just disappearing. Yes. So the thing about this build is everything is kind of snug inside. So I'm just trying to make sure that nothing is, you know, everything is perfectly in its place. Check it out. That is the inside of a completed machina. I gotta put knobs on real quick, and then we'll take it over for demos. I may have to grab, I think the final knob is over there. Oh, we'll do this. It's funny, I tried like 6 different other knobs on this build, and I couldn't find one that worked better, like looked better visually. Like I tried a bunch of different ones. I tried pink. I mean, if they were this style in a different color, I'm sure that would be fine, but yeah. Let's see. I'm gonna hop up. See, yep. Make sure it's all there. Cool. So a pro tip, and I may have to adjust the internal bias on this one. I don't know what the trim pot is set to. I guess I could check it real quick. I'll set it right there. Because this has an internal trim pot for the bias. Okay. We're ready. We are ready to go rock and roll at a reasonable volume because it's 10 o'clock, even though it is a Saturday. Okay. So, I know it's a little dark. Here, try and set this up so it doesn't look too bad. I have a light? Oh, I have a light in here. One sec, I'll go turn it on. Okay, so one of the first things we'll check, we'll hook power up. Okay, we got one LED, or 2 LEDs. Perfect, so this should be working in bypass. My guitar is already turned on. I just hooked those in backwards. It's really important to make sure when you're testing a pedal and about to flip it so you guys can see it, it is in the right position. So first thing we're gonna test before even flick the circuits on. Oh, sorry, here, I'll set you up so you can see, can you guys see a little bit? Here, maybe we'll have to, I think we're gonna have to tilt you guys up. There you go, you can kind of see it. Hopefully the amp doesn't freak out too bad from having 2 phones like that. Good news, so off-board is good, so that means bypass signal is clean. And we got Germanium Overdrive. And we got Diode Transistor. So we're good. 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 We're good testing. And then right here is the gated fuzz part, the Machina side with everything at 6. So one thing about this one, it sounds really good. I overbiased it just a little bit, so I'm going to bring that down. So that makes it a little bit easier to tame with the gate. These are so fun, man. Here, let's see. Oh, there we go. Cleaner overdrive sound. Chaos of when you can tighten it up and do it 8-bit. Where it almost sounds like a broken, but it's not actually broken. Fully built, functioning, rocking Machina. So there you go. Super fun pedal, super fun build. Hope you all enjoyed the live stream. So that took, what is 100 minutes? Hour 40? Anyway, it looks like we're about to drop connection. Hope you all have a good evening. Gonna try and build a few more pedals. Hope you all have a good night. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. So yeah, good times. Oh, we're still running on YouTube. Sorry, guys. I was turning off on Instagram. Thanks for hanging out. We're going to head out. Hope you have a good one. I think that stream went really well. And so now at least we have a complete Machina build. So thanks for hanging out, everybody.